Back when the channel, Adrian, Barry were kids, there was, yes, were kids. There was that whole dynamic of walk a mile in my shoes. And you used to be, and it used to be kind of a dynamic of a failsafe. What's the word? Of a pre-programmed dynamic. In other words, if you really wanted to understand someone, you put yourself in their position and you try to imagine what it would be like to be them and be in the situation that they're in and be faced with that whole dynamic. And most of you don't do that anymore. And as a matter of fact, that is kind of a lost art that most people in the world have become so isolated, so wrapped up in their own, what shall we say, narcissistic tendencies around the dynamic, and everybody has them, to be in that dynamic of wishing to be focused upon self and wishing to take care of, because the dynamic is that you have moved from that collective awareness when you were in the garden experience, and the reason you moved out of the garden experience was to develop identities of your own, individuation. And you have been on this journey of individuation for many thousands of years, and now you are at a point of consciousness, at a point of awareness where you are achieving that level of awareness. You have achieved that dynamic of individuation. And in the midst of this dynamic of individuation, you have lost the connection with each other. And we're not talking about this small group. We're not talking about you guys. What we're talking about is you have to look out there in the general public. And there is a great, almost a desperation at this point of people reaching out to each other. And the problem is that they forgot how to relate to each other. Too much of this. Too much of this, and so people have forgotten how to interact with each other. Well, in the dynamics of the situations that you are beginning to face, we would say to you that if you lived in LA at this point and were in somewhere in the Pacific Palisades and you had just lost your whole neighborhood along with 5,000 other individuals, families, that you would try to begin to find ways to come together collectively in order to weather the storm.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and
just like you're saying, like the way it's not exactly, but similar to the way that COVID, in some weird ways, made people more empathetic toward each other because we were all people. There's bumper stickers like "We're all in this together," right?
Well, it can be, but it is in a way that, Natalie, yes. We would never use that really that analogy because we do not like to use the COVID thing very much because it was so artificial and so manipulated in so many ways. But
Sure.
but yes, you're right in that sort of way. What COVID did was it caused a slower. It was a timeline shift, and it caused a slower movement of awakening. You might, in fact, look back over time, and your historians may look back and say that the dynamic of COVID was one of the one major things that began the dynamic of the awakening that is taking place now. If you look at the dynamic of COVID, a certain number of people woke up, but then there's a certain number of people that didn't.
Right.
If you look at the dynamics of each time the timeline has split, there has been a number of people that have awakened, but then there have also been a number of people that have not. With the election, there were a number of people that were awakened and a number of people that were not. Now, as with the fire and all of that stuff, well, what quicker way are you going to wake up people?
And so, too, forgive me if I don't remember, but why do you refer to this? Well, your favorite word, dynamic. Why do you refer to this dynamic as a timeline shift instead of something like a perspective shift or a consciousness shift? Why do you keep saying timeline
We
shift?
like it.
Why? Tell me why you like
Well,
it.
because it is more definitive of the dynamic. If you begin to look at them as timeline shifts, you'll see that they are happening more and more frequently. And each time it happens, either more people are waking up, but it's also dividing a dynamic. It's a repeated are you dynamic of are you sure?
Okay.
If you
Okay.
really, it's really that's all it really is. You have this. There's a whole core of individuals, of human beings who wish to be more, who wish to strive for new levels of consciousness, who wish to live in a world of peace with enough for all, who wish to be able to thrive and to be and grow into who they really are physically, emotionally, spiritually, and to bring completion to the dynamic of the human movement and the dynamic of human interaction, but also growth and movement and consciousness. And
Mm-hmm.
you are at a point right now where you have achieved that dynamic of individuation. But from that sacred I am, it is time to reach out and reconnect with each other. And is that not what the dynamics of the timeline splits are doing? They're in so many ways, they're forcing a number of people, not you. Why not you? Well, basically, because you are dealing with these things proactively. You're not you because you are working with us, because some of you are working with others in this sort of dynamic, and the reflections of your reality are saying to you, this is what you're here to deal with now. This is what
Mm-hmm.
you're here to, and you don't have to look very far. Your reality comes to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, but it's also a dynamic of being able to respond to that.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
and and you see, and so you'll see that that's the challenge that many people have. If you knew, if any of you know, anybody know anybody in LA?
I do. Like one of my
Yeah,
best friends is right there in the thick of it.
yeah, yeah. So what's their response? Have you talked to them?
I have, but he just says that he gets like massive headaches from the smoke.
Ah,
And he's still in his apartment, and I'm like, are you safe? And he's like, well, for now. Like the fires aren't quite in my neighborhood or whatever. I don't know.
yeah. Well, not everybody is affected in that sort of way. So if you look at that dynamic, would you say that he is awakened?
Actually, he's done a lot of inner work since we graduated from college, and yeah,
That's
he
not what
actually
we asked you. Now,
okay.
if you look at the dynamic of the energy that's being asked of everybody in these situations, all right, the situation around him is that thousands of people have been displaced. Thousands of people have lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
Is he just sitting in a bubble of isolation in the midst of that dynamic, or is he
He's not really like
actively,
that. He's pretty awakened.
yeah, but is he actively participating in assisting others?
Oh, I don't think so. No.
Yeah, well, that's why we say, is he in a bubble or not?
Oh.
And the dynamic is the tendency should be for most people to, even if you can only do it to a lesser degree, to at least do something in order to be able to assist, even if
Mm-hmm.
it's only sending $15 to Samaritan Purse or something along those lines. It's just a gesture. It's just a dynamic of movement. It's a doing in the dynamics of that follows a dynamics of the longing of the heart to have empathy, to feel to have compassion, to have understanding. And then if you just even in the smallest way do something along those dynamics. It really is magnified in so many ways, in that dynamic of giving, in that dynamic of charity, in that dynamic of love.